Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display and also to the sounds of my really loud ass refrigerator, which is right next to me every one of these reviews. But anyways, I know we just did a review today of the crew model Roman bearer guy. I'm still not totally sure what his name is, but I wanted to keep the crazy train going. I got the energy, you got the energy, so let's do another review. Like I said before, I got a package from BBTS with several pre-orders, and this is the second out of 3. This is the NECA Gremlins Evolution of the Gremlin 40th Anniversary 3-pack, including Gizmo, Mogwai Stripe, and Gremlin Stripe. So this is exactly what it says it is. It commemorates 40 years of the wonderful Gremlins who we love and adore so much. And NECA Gremlins have an interesting history. I think they were the first figures I ever picked up from NECA. I was a little kid, and they had a kind of an action figure shop, which sadly no longer exists. And they had all the original NECA Gremlins on the pegs. They had Electric Gremlin, they had Phantom Gremlin, they had Daffy, they had Lenny, they had all of them. But of course, being the little dude that I was with no wallet to speak of, I could only pick up, I think it was Mogwai Mohawk, Mogwai George, and Gremlin George. I don't know why I picked out those 3 specifically, but I have those original ones at least. And ever since then, I started to realize just how freaking expensive most Gremlins are. Especially Mogwai Stripe, for example. He's actually the one I'm most excited about in this pack, because if you look at the third-party market prices, he is stupidly overpriced. So it's nice that we're getting him again here. And this pack on its own, I mean, forget about just Mogwai Stripe. This is a really good starter pack for those who are wanting to get their feet wet. I mean, maybe not the Gremlins' feet wet, but their own feet wet in the NECA Gremlins catalog, because there are some more accessible ones now. They have dipped into the Ultimate line with Greta and Brain, for example, and there's been a whole bunch of Gremlins from Gremlins 1 since the original ones that they did, so it's nice that we have some figures coming back. I hope they do that more often, because there's a whole bunch of figures that were made back then that I missed out on. So it's nice that we're getting a pack like this, and I hope they do more. But anyways, let's get into it. Here we have the Gremlins box done in a really nice blue motif, which I really love. Over here we have Billy and Gizmo over there. Got 40 years of the Gremlins, Evolution of the Gremlin. Off on the top, we have a nice artistic rendering of Stripe over there. Warning, you must obey all Mogwai rules. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't know why you're watching this video. And one thing I really like is NECA gave themselves this, like, Cooper-style logo up there, so I find that really endearing. That's really cute. I do own one of the original Cooper Stripe Halloween costumes from the 1980s, and I got that all posted up on, like, a custom mannequin, and he looks really cool. So, I'm a big Gremlins guy, what can I say? Off to this side here, we have all the rules. If you need to brush up, there you go. Off to the side, exact same graphic. Off on the back, I actually don't know. We have that cartoon Stripe once again. Then you have Gizmo with an alternate face portrait. You have Mogwai Stripe, which comes with nothing except his crazy little self, but that's alright. And then we have Gremlin Stripe, who I have actually owned the Ultimate Edition of. And this figure contains all the exact same stuff, but and anyways, here's the reason why I'm getting each of these figures. Firstly, Gizmo. I already have the Ultimate Gizmo, who comes with the alternate face plates and some bonus accessories like his Rambo attire, for example. But it doesn't hurt to have an extra Gizmo, because he could either be just another Mogwai running around, or you could have him with a different faceplate. So now I've converted my Ultimate Gizmo into the Rambo variant, then I have a standard one over here. As for the Stripe Mogwai, I never had him, so he's the most exciting one in this pack. As for the Stripe over here that came in an Ultimate pack, I had him, but he fell over and broke his leg. I had to glue him back together, and I wound up converting him into the Robber Gremlin over here, and you can see I gave him a 1/6 scale gun. Speaking of scale, it is worth mentioning for those who have not heard my tirade before, I have deduced what type of scale each of these are in. They're not all 7-inch scale. In fact, the Mogwai are 1/3 scale, and the Gremlins are 1/6 scale. Something to keep in mind. But all that being said, I think I've blabbed on enough. Let's crack this packaging open. Alright, I think the best plan of attack is to start off with the Mogwai, because they're basically the same figure except for the hands and the head sculpts, and then we can move on to Stripe. That being said, this review, I suspect will be rather quick, because all this here is re-release, and two of these figures are effectively the same dude, just with slight variances to make them separate characters, but anyhow, let's get started. Over here we have two Mogwai, and we've seen Mogwai pretty recently in the NECA line when they re-released the Gremlins 2 Mogwai, each in their own little bubble of plastic, not too long ago, like 2 or 3 years maybe, along with a newly debuted Punk Gremlin from a Mountain Dew commercial, which is pretty interesting. As for Gizmo, he's reappeared several times. He was single-released. He was an ultimate release, he was single released again, and he was done as an exclusive. He's probably the most, well, definitely the most common NECA Mogwai you could get. As for the Mogwai Stripe, he was exclusive to that original time he was released when I was a little child baby boy. But now, that's no longer the case because he's in this 3-pack. But one thing that I did want to do, otherwise, is articulate the legs, that way they could stand upright, first of all. And it's not easy to do. These bodies are rather old, so they're exactly as the same as they appeared way back in the day in the early 2010s, so their articulation isn't awesome. Everyone who knows these figures knows that. And one of the drawbacks is the legs, which I was just about to complain about how stiff the legs are, but this one's moving fine. As for this one, though, now it's moving fine. Alright, so when you first take them out of the packaging, they're rather stiff, so you want to be a little careful when moving them for the first time, but once you get them clicked out of place, you can get them to properly stand up on their own. The second thing worth mentioning about these Mogwai for the uninitiated is that all of them come with an eye-rolling feature. You can see Gizmo here looking off to the right, and then you have Mogwai Stripe looking straight on. You'll notice there's a big old plastic tab. Now, this is either going to be a gift or a curse, because one thing I remember from those original Mogwai is, well, obviously they had the eye-rolling feature as well, and it's fun and all. However, sometimes the eyes weren't very straight. I think on all the Mogwai I have, aside from these two, the eyes are kind of random, except for Daffy. Of all the Mogwai, the crazy-eyed one is the one with straight eyes. What are the goddamn chances of that? But anyhow, I'm really curious to see how they approach the eyes this time. So let's do one at a time. Let's start with Giz over here. We're going to pull out that tab. You can see there's that little ball under there that'll allow us to roll the eyes around. We'll play around with that. So I just pulled it, and now the eyes should be free to move around. And actually, they look really straight. Okay, I have renewed confidence in these now. Well, then again, we haven't gotten to Mogwai Stripe just yet, so let's bring him in. Oh, yep, proceed to drop him and break him. Anyways, rule number 4, don't drop him. Anyways, here is the awesome-looking Stripe. Let's pull out his cord right there. Pull the cord like he's about to die. But now let's see how his eyes go. His eyes are obviously a lot wider than Gizmo's. Oh boy, yeah, see, sometimes they can get a little lopsided. Again, better for Daffy, not so good for the other Gremlins. Yeah, this guy's a little bit more dicey because, first of all, his eyes are a lot wider, so there's less you can get away with. And second, you kind of need to hit a sweet spot. Like, see, I kind of got it there. You can be maliciously looking to the side. Ooh, that'd be good for an alternate Gremlins poster, wouldn't you say? That looks very malicious. Very good. Down to the side. I'm having trouble getting him looking straight. Looking straight is really difficult, so hope you don't mind side-eye, but right there. And then you kind of got to roll it to where you want. Don't touch the ball in the back and set him down. So, yeah, pre-pose him first, though. It's pretty much the way to go. But anyways, let's talk about the details. Again, not a whole lot to discuss here because we've seen both of these guys before. But let's go over them nonetheless for those who are not familiar with the NECA Gremlins and are wondering if they should give them a try. You can look at the paint detail, and it's very well applied overall from what I can see. I mean, there might be the occasional little drop or something like that, but everything looks pretty consistent. I'm not seeing anything that's too erroneous here. One thing I don't like as much, like if you look at this ear really closely, it almost looks like he's got a hair on there. I tried brushing that away. It's not a hair, it's just the way that the paint lied down on mine. So that's not a huge deal. Again, I got 2 gizmos, so it's not a big deal at all. But yeah, you got the paint on brown, you got the little white spot to make him look a little bit more dog-like. Little cute mouth with pursed lips, tiny brown nose, his little limbs, his hands, his feet. Everything here looks great. Little look on the back, patch of white on top of his head. You also have the white cuffs, the white little butt, and the white legs. So everything here looks really good. And I should call attention to the hands, which are also really nicely painted, very consistently with the fleshy parts that are on the ears, on the mouth, and the eyelids. And you also get the fingernails and the toenails. So, neat little detail. I mean, in a different time for NECA, I could see them totally avoiding that, but nope, they punched that in. So, very good to see. Now, again, we're kind of reviewing both these guys at once. Let's take a look at Stripe. We'll take a little bit more time with, because he does have the titular stripe, which is done with actual fur. Now, on both him and on adult Stripe, I guess you could say, you need to furrow the stripe back up, because in the packaging, it's a little bit crushed. So you want to kind of maybe get a comb. I recommend that because there's a little bit of knotting. There's some loose threadies in there. See, there's a few in there, but we'll leave those there for now. But yeah, you kind of got to stick it back up. And there we go. That's close to what he's supposed to look like, but I want to work with that. I'm surprised that the eyes are remaining still. But anyways, you can see that the body is very similar to Gizmo, except the hands are different. Rather than open hands, he actually has two little fists. I kind of want to see this guy punching someone out. That would be pretty hilarious. But anyways, the head sculpt is, of course, totally different. I think the ears... I don't know about the ears. Let's have a peek here. The ears might be identical. I could see that. I mean, why change the ears if they're all ultimately the same Mogwai? I guess that makes sense. But the head's definitely different. You see that we have actual symmetry, whereas Gizmo has asymmetry with a white spot. But on Stripe over here, it's totally brown. You have, well, the white stripe. You have an additional white stripe here on the forehead, and a little white chin, which Gizmo also has, I'm noticing just now. He's also got this really good devilish grin on him. He might be my favorite of all the NECA Mogwai, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe first impressions are a big deal, or recency bias, I don't know. But, I don't know, I really like him. And again, aside from the hands, everything else is exactly the same on the body, neck down. However, one thing I have noticed is the coloring on the Gizmo, as for the brown anyways, is darker than what we see on Stripe. On Stripe, it's a little lighter. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I'm looking forward to bringing in the ultimate Gizmo and doing a comparison then. So we'll give that a few moments, but anyhow, that's pretty much it for the aesthetics of these figures. Anything else on the back of Stripe? Not really. Pretty much the same. But let's talk about articulation, which is pretty much identical for both of them. But let's have a peek regardless. As for the ears, they are on a ball joint, so you can get him a little bit more emotive. He looks a little bit placid. Let's try and fix his eyes there. Something like that, yeah. Pretty good. You also have a ball joint in this ear as well. He's got a little bit of tilt in action in the head, and a removal. His face is about to fall off. I forgot to talk about his one accessory, which we'll get to in a moment. As for the arms, there is, I think it's a ball joint in the shoulders, but it's basically restricted to a swivel due to the way that the body and the arms are sculpted because they're so puffy. I always forget that there's a swivel where the elbow should be, right here. It's stiff on this one, but it does work on my ultimate Gizmo, so just take my word on that. The hands are on a ball joint. Down here on the legs, at the top of the thigh, there is a ball, which barely does anything. These guys, the legs, there's articulation in there, but there might as well not be. They really do nothing at all, and absolutely nothing in the feet. So no rocker, sad. As for Stripe over here, I suspect everything is identical. Yeah, you got your head movement. Actually, whoa, holy crap. Is there more in Stripe? No, it's probably the same in both of them. It's just Stripe doesn't have the alternate faceplate that dips a little further down, so that would probably restrict Gizmo a little bit, depending on what you choose, but yeah, everything's the same. Again, everything feels a little bit frozen coming out. Oof. This one, I don't know. Yeah, I might give these guys some hot water to loosen up the joints a bit. And hey, we'll get some free Mogwai. That's fine. Nothing bad ever came from multiple Mogwai, of course. But yeah, everything here is exactly the same. So I'll screw around with the articulation, warm them up. There's definitely some stiffness with both of these guys, so do be wary of that. Last thing to talk about is accessories. I should have done that before. Stripe has nothing, but Gizmo does have a faceplate, and it might be familiar to those of you who have the alternate release. Well, alternate too. He also has a sad expression, which has also been seen before on a few releases. As for this one here, you see he's got a little bit more of this cute little grin. I always felt like this face was a little bit too sinister for him, but you can pop it off and have a little look into the 90s with the Furby epidemic. And then you can just take this face. You'll notice that there's two holes. That's because there's two pegs, and you can prop this face on. You just gotta line it up, push it back. It's not lining up as well as it does on my other gizmo for some reason. I don't know why that is. Okay, I think I got it. You just got to push it all the way back to the point where the eyes are almost flush with the eyelids. And now that's his worried expression, which I prefer with him, just because when you have him on Gremlin's display, obviously he's going to be surrounded by his scary brothers and one sister. So this is just a little bit more accurate for him. But that being said, that is it for the Mogwai. Let's feed one of them after midnight and get to the Gremlin. Now here is Gremlin Stripe, who's looking a little mangled. This is exactly how he appeared when I took him out of the box, so I haven't actually moved any of the joints yet. I'm sure they'll all move fine, but yeah, let's straighten him out and make him a bit more presentable. But yeah, we'll fix up the feet a little bit. There we go. And once again, I mean, starting from the head sculpt anyways, he's got the stripe. I mean, it's kind of where his name comes from, just like his Mogwai counterpart. And like before, you're going to want to maybe get a comb or get your fingers, straighten it out, puff it up a little bit, peel it back, whatever it is you got to do to make it look good. That's pretty good for now. It looks a little too nice, actually, almost like he's got some hair gel in there. But yeah, I'm going to definitely get a comb, have that be a little bit more scrabbly. I don't know, wiggle it around. Yeah, you gotta play around with that a bit. But straight on, looks good. It's definitely Stripe. And again, I don't have the original Ultimate Stripe exactly in his original form because I customized him. But looking to the side, I am seeing differences. So I will bring them in a little bit later. But firstly, let's talk about this figure for those who do not know about the NECA Stripe in his Gremlin form. So we have really awesome eyes. Love these eyes a lot. It's definitely separated him from his other brothers. He has a unique head sculpt from the other Gremlins, Gremlins, where he's much more angry looking. He's got this very distinct, grumpy looking mouth with articulation, mind you. So that's always great. You just had to unstiffen that a bit, but yeah, I'm probably going to always have him with it open anyways, unless you want him smoking a cigar or something, or cigarette. That comes with some of the Ultimate Gremlins. As for the ears, they might be more glossy than the original release. I can't tell for sure because I cut those ears off in order to get the bandana on there because I like the more angry expression for the Bandit Gremlin, so that just felt a little bit more fitting to me. Going on down, beautiful NECA paintwork. It's certainly their signature. It looks great, and I will pull in the other dude later, but this one is definitely more crisp than the other one, which I guess is an overall good thing, but at the same time, some of the stripes are painted in so evenly, it feels a little bit less organic. Before it was a little bit more faint. Here it's much more solid and defined. So I don't know. It depends on which way you want to go, but I need another stripe. One with functioning leg articulation, mind you, because I broke the first one. Also got a really good torso here. Very excellent texturing. Need I mention the texturing on all NECA figures because it's always great. Up to the back, not as scaly on here as it would be for Gremlins 2 Gremlin, of course, because they went through a radical design change. They do have like these shoulder blades here, have a little bit of this tail, or whatever you want to call it. Also got some claws. You have what looks like a trigger hand. It is not meant for a gun, though you can fit one in there, as I've showed you before with the Bandit. Off on this one, it's more of an open, semi-gripping hand, whatever it is you want. So very nice. And both of those are meant for, of course, a few accessories that we will get to in a second. Down the legs, very nice gloss on the scaling, or whatever it is you want to call it. Also got that reptile pattern going on as well. Really love the deep green. I think that's fantastic. And then he also got some very tiny feet. Now, everything here is 100% accurate to Stripe. However, because of the tiny feet, this can be said about any of the Gremlins 1 Gremlins. How many times have I said Gremlins in this video. It's like I'm going to summon one if I say it enough. But the drawback with the accuracy of the feet is you basically have to give these guys a figure stand. The Gremlins 2 Gremlins had much wider digits on their feet, like spread out, but these guys are really small. So you're going to need to throw something under there, or maybe lean them against a wall or a figure stand. I don't know. There's ways to do it. But yeah, that is Stripe in a nutshell. Is this arm going to move? Okay, good. I have a little PTSD from the first release, but again, that wasn't NECA's fault. That was me, because I kept dropping them. But anyways, let's have a look at accessories straight away. Firstly, big ol' MF'n chainsaw from the finale, his final duel with Billy, who had a bat, and it's a really great piece. It's got some readables on there. Of course, nothing that's true to life or anything, because they can't do real licensed products, so you gotta find some workarounds sometimes. Bradington power cutter, upper and lower handguards, all this boring text, but makes it feel more authentic. You got 200 over 14 inches. I don't even know what that means. Flipping it around, more chainsaw. Got that guard over there for your face. Got the grip. Got, I guess, the engine. And you also got this wire. Now, this is the biggest difference I've noticed between the original chainsaw, which I've totally repainted to go with the zombie figure, so I can't really show you that, and this one over here. On the original one, it was more coming out towards the back and it had a little bit of a waviness to it. But when you pull this one out of the new box for the 40th anniversary pack, it's bent this way and it's very stiff and rigid. So you might want to get some hot water and it might flow back outward as it should, but it does feel a little bit strange. I mean, and let alone, oh, there goes Stripe. Let alone the fact that, I don't know if this wire is nice necessarily. I mean, I feel like they should have either done no wire at all or do a really, really long, more flexible wire. That way you could have it be more realistic to the movie, but whatever, it's not a big deal. You're going to be focusing on this when you get it in his hands, with a really nice silver chain, black blade? Is that a blade? I don't know what you'd call it. I don't know my chainsaw anatomy, alright, folks? But anyways, you can get that into his hands with some effort. I remember it being a little difficult, but it can be done. I'm actually going to zoom out for this here. I know we're kind of hopping into accessorizing our figure a little early here, but you just got to find out. Ooh, yeah, the limbs are definitely stiff, so do be careful. He was in the mail for a little while, too. And then you got to get it around this trigger hand, which is rather stiff. But I noticed on the original release, once you get the chainsaw in, the hand's going to kind of warp out permanently. But there we go. It's got in one hand, and then you can utilize the swivel in this arm. Maybe. Oh boy. It's going to work. Yeah, it's working. It's just, it's got this tenderness that freaks me out. And then you can bend this arm up, swivel this over, if you'll allow me, and then get it down. I do think all these guys are going to need some warm water, so I'm not going to go any further than that, but you can see he can hold the chainsaw. If I warmed him up and I was a little bit more daring with the joints, he'd be able to hold those fine, so just keep that in mind. I'm actually going to remove the goddamn chainsaw because I'm a little afraid of what it will do to the joints before warming this guy up, so put that arm down. What else does this guy come with? He also has two alternate hands right over here, and are basically identical for the left and the right, both more open and relaxed hands. This one's pinched together a little bit, and that is for the sake of another handheld accessory being this razor blade. I guess I have two of these now because I have the other release, so that's a load of fun. But you can kind of just pinch it together. That looks really good. And if you want to swap the hands, let's give that a test. Not always the easiest thing, but let's see. Maybe it'll be a little nicer this way. Come on. You gotta wiggle it, and you can see the rig. It's pretty much just a pin on a bit of a ball. Or is it a hinge? No, it's a hinge, excuse me. But it's totally stiff right now. It's not moving for anything. But you can get the alternate hand on there. I might have them with the razor blade instead of the chainsaw, just to change things up. And frankly, my Gremlin shelf is running out of room, so I gotta make sacrifices. But that hand will eventually, one day, slide on there, and then you can get the razor blade in between those fingers. Do mind those fingers, because I noticed that once you spread them out, they're not going to go back together. But yeah, you can get them with the blade. giving Billy a really hard time in that really odd shopping plaza that had candy and razor blades and chainsaws and guns. I don't understand what kind of store that was, but plot's got a plot. So that is it for his handheld accessories, but the last thing he has is a skateboard. Again, I got two of these now, don't know what to do with them. But if you want to radicalize your Gremlin or your Mogwai, you can totally do that, but this is the ones in the 1/6 scale, so it wouldn't be too accurate for the Mogwai. But it is functional. It's got spinning red wheels. Nice implied wood grain on the bottom. They didn't have to do that, but that's still nice. And good texture along the top. And it does roll wherever you need it to go. Now, I guess one thing I wish they would have done is maybe provide a peg hole in here, because you can get stripe on there. But again, he's a little top heavy, and we talked about the small feet. But we can try it, see how it goes. Ooh, okay, luck is on our side today. Right, he's not leaning back. Yeah, he's just balancing. But right now he's in vanilla. If you want him, like, kind of holding his hands out to balance a little bit, then you're going to want to warm him up. Then you can prop him on there. But even then, I'd still be worried about having the skateboard on my shelf, because I'd be so afraid of just, just sliding right off. So that's something that you'll want to avoid. Now let's talk about articulation, and I'm going to be a little careful here because I don't want to break anything. So notice how much I care about these old NECA bodies and how much I want to preserve them. So anyways, let's pop in a bit. We talked about the articulated jaw. It can close and it can open. I love how seamless the jaw is. It's pinless, isn't it? Well, if it is pinned, it's like back here. You can kind of see the groove. So that's pretty creative engineering. The ears are also on a hinge, so they can go back and they can go forward. Not a crazy amount on stripe, a little bit more so on the generic Gremlins. As for the arms, they got a swivel. They can hinge up to a point. I won't go further than that. Got a hinge in the elbow that hits just past 90. Swivel in the elbow. We talked about the wrists. They have a hinge in and out, but for some reason they're frozen on mine. But you can swivel the wrists as much as you want, so that's okay. It's a little bit of a trade-off if you can't get them unfrozen. There is a ball joint in the mid-torso right there, so I don't know how much this is going to do for him, but let's see. Actually, way more forward than I thought, and a little more back than I thought. Okay, so that's something to consider when you're posting them up on the skateboard. As for legs, let's get the arms out of the way a bit. I do feel like things are loosening up as I'm going through them, so that's worth mentioning. There's a little bit of spread right there. Come back in. They roll forward a bit and back. One thing I mentioned when we last reviewed a Gremlin, when this freaking channel was starting, these legs are really not meant to articulate that much, even though they do have joints in them. But because the legs, once again, are so dainty, I mean, he's just not going to hold a stance when he's anything that's not vanilla. So I'm not going to move this joint at all, because that's a joint that broke on my original one. But that should hinge back probably a decent amount, because you can see a deep cut in there. Then he has another joint down here on this dog leg. There's a specific term for it, but I don't remember what it is. Once again, very tight. Not going to mess with it. And then you got, I think, a ball joint in the foot. So you got your forward, got your backward, and then you have some rocker. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't totally exploit the joints on this figure or the Mogwai right now. It's just everything feels really stiff, and I do want to be careful. So sorry about that. But anyways, let's do a few comparisons. Things are going to get a little interesting here. I believe all of NECA's Mogwai are basically the same height, aside from any mohawks that they might have otherwise. But that being said, let's have a look at two gizmos. Over here on the left, we have my Ultimate Gizmo. He's done in the same window presentation that you'd see with typical Ultimate figures you'd be seeing today, and he is done up in his Rambo assortment from Gremlins 2. And on the right, we have the 40th anniversary gizmo that we just had a look at. Now, let's pull them in and see what the differences are. I mean, obviously, oh, there goes his little bow and arrow. Oh well, I need some fun tack for that. Obviously, there are some distinct extra parts on the Ultimate one that set him apart from the other. But as for paint, that's the thing I wanted to look at. It seems that the Ultimate one is a little bit more matte. As for the one that we got in the pack, there's a slight gloss. Are you noticing that? There's a little bit of shimmer to him. See, if I turn them up to the light, you can see it a little bit better. Even on the ears, there's more gloss on this guy. And as for this one, it seems like it's mostly matte, except for the eyes and ear lava gloss, which I think is more accurate. So this guy's a little better done than this dude over here, in my opinion, color-wise. But it's not so dramatic that's going to make this a bad or worse figure. He still serves its purpose fine. Another thing that I wanted to compare is the original scared faceplate of this dude over here. So let's bring that in and bring it next to the new guy, just for good measure, just to see what the paint's like. It looks like it's almost exactly the same. I'm not seeing any differences. Obviously, there's no eyes behind this thing, so a little creepy, but yeah, it seems like it's the same paint apps. It looks like the mouth is more defined on the new one. So there's pros and cons to each of them. Like, you can also see the line between the white and the brown is more faded than it is on the new one. Here it's a little bit more crisp. Same terms can be said for the stripe that we just got, so we'll have a look at that as well. But that's pretty much it for the Mogwai. Nothing really else to say about Mogwai stripe over here, because I don't have the original one, so I can't really compare them together, but I can put him next to the Ultimate Giz over here. Can I call him Giz? I guess they call him that in the movies at some point, don't they? Gotta move his little explosive arrow over there. Kind of using some gravity trickery to keep everything together there. But yeah, pretty much all the same height, and same would go for any of the Gremlins from Gremlins 2. Now here's what I was talking about regarding scale. Here is Mogwai stripe next to Gremlin stripe. They are distinctly differently heighted. One is like twice the height of the other, but they're not within the same scale at all. If you had a Mogwai that was accurate to the Gremlin scale-wise, then their only option would be the two gizmos that came with the accessory pack. In fact, let me run out and get one for a minute here. So keep this in mind. We have the standard Mogwai over here, which is 1/3 scale, and then we have these guys, which are 1/6 scale. So technically, in a weird world, this guy is bigger than this guy. I know it's all weird to say, but you'll understand it better when I bring in the NECA Gremlins accessory pack gizmo, and this guy is 1/6 scale. So if you were to put any figures next to a Hot Toys figure, the stripe, the adult stripe anyways, and the little tiny gizmo would be more accurate. If you put this guy next to a 1/6 scale figure, it wouldn't be accurate at all. So these guys are kind of in their own league. But nothing here is 7-inch scale, which is a little weird, but it's good that they make these guys as big as they do. That way they can cram in all the detail. I mean, speaking of that, when you do look at a 1/6 scale Gremlins thing, the proportions are not quite there. I still like this guy a lot. It's kind of cool to put him next to other figures in the 1/6 scale, but their proportions, they ain't there. They ain't there, Chief. It's definitely off. So it's cool that we get 1/3 scale ones where the details are a lot more evident. Last thing I wanted to do is bring in my burglar Gremlin, or robber Gremlin, whatever you want to call him. Once again, he's got the bandana from the accessory pack, and I've, of course, can't compare the original stripe this guy was with the new one, because I've taken the stripe off, I've removed the ears, I put the bandana on there, and he's got a broken leg, which I've glued in place. But we can compare the colors a little bit, so let's bring them together. So let's have a look. Once again, we have the original Ultimate release on the left. Then we have the 40-year anniversary pack on the right. It seems like the yellow on the original one is just a hair more saturated. On the new one, it's a bit more pale. I think the paleness is better on the new one. Another thing I kind of mentioned before, if you put the arms right next to each other, that actually does a really good job showing you the color differences. The yellow on the old one is brighter. The brown stripes on the new one is more defined and darker. And it seems like the green on the original one is just a tad lighter. And the one on the right has a bit more gloss. So I don't know which one is necessarily the better of the two. I don't think you can go wrong either way. They're both good. But if you want a little variation, it doesn't hurt to have both. Again, if you want to turn one into a different Gremlin, like I did over here. But yeah, I'm not sure which is more accurate. I mean, sound off in the comments, but I like them both. I don't really have an issue with either of them, except I broke the leg on one of them. And you can kind of see I broke the joint right in there. I had to glue it back and paint it over. So again, these guys are meant to not articulate in the legs much at all. You see I have this 3D printed figure stand that I got from eons ago. I don't remember from where or from who, but yeah, this guy's cool. I like him a lot. This gun, by the way, it's unbranded. I don't remember who I got it from, so sorry, I can't help you there, but look up 1/6 scale guns. It'll fit perfectly in any adult stripes trigger hand for the chainsaw. So if you want to do that, or even give this stripe a gun, because that's accurate to the movie, you could totally do that. Here are all 3 figures from the 3-pack lined up together. As again, we mentioned it already, every Mogwai is basically the same height, every Gremlin is basically the same height, so no need to bring in everybody else from the shelf into here. But I can at least compare them to Star Wars The Black Series, Quash, and Mechamuck.
God, I got 2 guns, buddy. What do you say to that?
Hey, don't shoot! Biggie Gang is family!
You know these guys?
Yeah, my dad is one of them. He's got glasses and a British accent.
Unfortunately, because Stripe, adult Stripe anyways, is so top-heavy, I'm not able to get all 3 of them on the rotisserie at once, but that's okay. You can't have it all. But as for this 3-pack, I am enormously pleased. I love it a lot. I think the most important thing about this pack is that anyone who has never gotten a NECA Gremlins anything can start with this pack and instantly have 2 Mogwai and 1 Gremlin, perhaps the best Gremlin of all time. So it's really good for anyone who's wanting to get their collection started, whether they never had a NECA figure before, or they never had a Gremlins figure before, or they're not even a toy collector. This is just a nice assortment that teaches you a little bit about scale, paint, and articulation. I find this set very educational in that way. I think it's a weird angle, an interesting twist to put on here, but I think there's a lot to learn from this pack, especially when you bring in the older releases and see the very slight differences. And I don't believe that any of these figures are better or worse than the releases that we saw in the past. They just vary ever so slightly. So it really does come down to preference and what price you're able to pay, but the differences are barely noticeable at all, to be honest with you. So honestly, if you got these figures already in your collection, then you could probably give this set a pass. But if you've never had one of these, like I've never had the Mogwai Stripe, he's the most exciting thing for me. If you've never had a Gizmo for whatever reason, even though he's the easiest to get, or you missed your shot at the Gremlin Mohawk, Stripe, Mohawk is his reincarnated part, then this is a great set to get, just to fill in some gaps, or maybe to have a few extras, or if you broke a Gremlin in the past like I did. So I'm really thrilled with this. I don't think you can go wrong with it. Something you definitely don't need, again, if you have all 3 of them, but if you're missing 1 or 2, I think it's still worth getting. Doesn't hurt to have multiple gizmos, and the 2 stripes, a little elusive, so it's nice to have all 3 of them in this little starter pack. That's the best way to put it. So that's pretty much all I got to say. This is a really nice pack, and if you're planning on getting it, it's widely available now. I got this on BBTS, and I hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And that being said, I will wrap up right now. If you enjoyed this review and you found it helpful, then please, as per usual, be sure to
like, comment,
ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals, and subscribe.
Yeah, hi, Mechamuck here. If you want to see more from Pod Guy, then please be sure to check out the Pod Plays channel down in the description for some Let's Plays. And if you want to support the channel a bit too, you also got the Pod Patreon, which is down in the description as well. See you around, folks!
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.